Hey guys, back with another quick update. So yesterday I uploaded just a generic summertime overview video of the pond and went into a little bit of detail about my Sweeney Koi Cafe, and I just noticed that it's essentially empty now. If you look there, you can kind of see the little viewing window on the side. It's empty, so typically you could see the food up at the top when it's full. So since it's empty, I wanted to take a time to make a little quick video, open the unit up, show you guys what it looks like on the inside, and as well as talk about some of the food that I use and the feeding frequency as well. So I'll go ahead and grab the unit off there, we'll move it over here to the table and open it up. Okay, so here we have the unit on the table itself. So again, this is the Sweeney Koi Cafe, made by a Sweeney company. These are really cool feeders. I think I paid about $250 for it. So, you know, it's kind of pricey for what it is, but they work really well. I have not had any issues with it at all. It's been running without a hiccup for a little bit over a year now. They come in 3 different colors. So one is this goldish color, red, and then green. And so the other thing I did was as well as add on this little solar attachment at the back. So this is a separate add-on. You can get another little optional accessory, and I think these were about, I think it was another $50 or so for the little solar accessory. And then, you know, it's good because you really don't have to worry about charging the battery at all. It's just set it, leave it alone, and as long as it gets plenty of sunshine, it'll work fine. So I'm gonna flip it upside down and show you what the bottom of the feeder itself looks like. Here's the bottom of the feeder itself. So it's a very simple concept. So you essentially have this flap here where the food just sits there, and at your set intervals, this little motor is going to vibrate. It has a little counterweight here, and you can adjust the frequency, or sorry, the strength of the motor as well as the timing of it, and that'll essentially just vibrate and knock all the food out. So here's the solar attachment in the back here, and then we'll open it up and show you the inside. Okay, to open this thing up, so I have this little clasp on here just to keep it secured, because you could have a lot of weight in here and then everything's essentially just hanging from the top. You don't want that thing to bust open and dump all the food in the water. So flip that up, and you can see here's the inside of the unit itself. So I keep the instruction booklets there just in case I ever need to reference back to them. You can see it's pretty much empty, so a little bit of food there at the very bottom. So this is the battery unit itself. So it's a little 6-volt battery, and then here's the controller where you can adjust all the feeding. So in the video I uploaded yesterday, I mentioned I was doing 8 feedings a day, as you can see there. So 8 feedings, 10 o'clock in the morning here currently. And the other cool thing is it tells you the battery level here as well. Because I have the solar attachment, it's always fully charged, so don't have to worry about disconnecting the unit and charging the battery. Otherwise, I'd have to open this thing up regularly, look at the battery level, and if it was getting low, I'd have to unplug this thing, hook it up to a little charger. So with the solar attachment, it's really great. So again, so the feeder itself, so it essentially has 3 different levels of adjustment or for the feeding volume. So one is this little lever here. So this opens and closes a flap at the very bottom. So I have it set to number 4. 5 would be the biggest opening, 1 would be the smallest. So from here you can adjust how much food gets spilled each time along with the controller itself. So I'm gonna switch to the bucket of food that I have, and I'll show you what I'm feeding as well. Okay, here's where I store my food. Just, I have a bunch of these 5-gallon buckets, and then I add this little attachment here. It's called a Gamma seal lid, so G-A-M-M-A. You get these on Amazon for about 10, 12 bucks or so. So it's this outer ring that clamps onto the bucket, as well as this screw-on lid, which has, as you can see, there's a rubber seal on there. So I like to take all the food out of the bag and put it in these buckets, nice airtight seal, and keeps the food fresh. So it does a good job. So what I have in here, so you can actually see it's a mixture of stuff. So for the start of the 2020 season, what I'm actually feeding right now is, so the lighter green stuff is Hikari staple. The brownish, these gold brown looking pellets is Hikari Saki, and then the darker ones are the Hikari Saki color food. So a little bit of a mixture of everything in there. The Hikari stuff, it's really good, but it gets to be very expensive, so I like to kind of mix it down or dilute it with the economy and the staple food, just because it gets to be very expensive when you're feeding the Saki, which is 8, 9, 10 bucks a pound. So I'll go ahead and move this over and fill up the hopper, and then we'll go from there. Alright, we got the hopper full of food, actually completely full of food. You can see I went up a little bit high, which is fine, once the food level just starts to drop right below it. You can see the little feeding window is pretty much right at the top where you want it to be. And so let's look at the actual controller itself. So this is the newer style updated controller, as I understand. So prior to this, Sweeney had an older model of the controller that I think it only did about 8 to 10 or so feedings a day. This one, I'm not sure how many it goes, but it's multiple, so it's way more than I would ever need to feed. So right now you can see I'm doing 8. So I'll just show you how to adjust that. It's very quick, very intuitive. So you just essentially go to the feed event button. All right, and so there's feeding number 8. It's at 4 p.m. is the last one essentially, and I can backtrack and go to the previous one. It's at 3:30 in the afternoon. The one before that is at 3 in the afternoon, 2, 1, and so forth. So as you can see, essentially, you can flip through all the feedings. You can add more, delete some if you want to. So if I hit enter, it'll go into the time, the hour, sorry, then the minutes, and then here's where you adjust the actual food that gets fed. So duration. So this is the duration that the motor is going to stay on. So this is right now it's showing 1 second. And then if I hit enter again, it's going to show the speed or the strength of the motor. So the lowest, I think it's 10, and I have it set to 20. So I'm feeding for 1 second with the motor strength of 20 and a flap opening of number 4. So that's essentially how you set this thing. Like I said, it's very easy to do. Once you're done, you just hit enter, and it starts flashing again, and it'll take you up to the next one and so forth. And once you're all done, you just hit clock, go back to the beginning, and this thing will reset with the number of feedings that you have, and there it goes back to 8. So I'm going to do a quick test. So I have this little baking pan just to catch all the food. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, or how much food it dumps in one test feeding here. Alright, we have the automatic feeder sitting in the baking tray. I'm going to hit this test button. It's going to count down, and then it's going to do a test feeding. Alright, there you go. So I'm going to put the camera down and move this out of the way so we can see how much food it dropped. Alright, so here's how much food it gave me in one feeding. So again, not huge amounts, as I'm just starting the summer, the feeding season. Probably a good size handful there. So I'm feeding this 8 times a day currently, and so typically I'll come in at the end of the evening and give them a couple more handfuls as we're just sitting out here hanging out. So what I want to do next is actually weigh this food to know exactly how much I'm feeding currently, for the time being. Okay, to weigh the actual food, I have this just a little cheap digital kitchen scale. You can get these on Amazon. So right now it's set to pounds and ounces. Put this bowl on here, clear it out, and then we'll just dump the food in there. So about almost exactly 2 ounces is what that feeder dumped in for this time. So 2 ounces multiplied by 8 feedings a day, it's 16 ounces, or a pound exactly. So feeding about a pound for the moment. And as I mentioned in the video I did yesterday, so that's a bit light for where I need to be based on how many fish I have in the pond. Typically for good growth, you want to be feeding these guys anywhere from 1 to 3% of their total body weight. And based on the number of fish I have and the estimated weight of those fish, I should be feeding about 2 pounds a day in the peak summertime. So I'm going to slowly start to ramp that up here as we get into August, September. But for the time being, you can see I'm feeding exactly about a pound a day, with a little bit more at the end of the day through manual hand feedings. So I wanted to show you guys what happens if I move this from the number 4 position to 5 here, and just to see how much of a difference that makes in the food. So move this thing over, make sure that food settles there, give it another test. Alright, so as you can see, it looks like quite a much bigger pile of food there. So let's check this thing out, weigh it again, clear that. Alright, so you can see we went from 2 ounces to 3.4 ounces just by moving that flapper from 4 to 5. So, quite a big difference. So I think, based on where I need to be, this would be probably ideal once I get into the late peak season of the summertime and closer into the fall where the fish really start feeding more. So I'd probably keep the seconds same at 1 and the motor speed at 20, and probably just move that flapper up to the level 5 to a little bit more food out. And if that still wasn't enough, I could increase the seconds of the motor, so let it go for 2 seconds instead of 1. That would essentially double this. I guess I'd probably be 5.5 to 6 ounces of food every single time, which is quite a bit of food. That's probably more than they would be able to eat in a couple of minutes, and most of it would end up in the skimmer here. So again, we'll just set it back to number 4 there. Throw this food back in here. Close her up, and we'll put it back on the pond. Alright, I don't think I ever went into detail on how I'm actually hanging this thing over the pond. So it's just your typical steel piping. I get this stuff at Lowe's. They make it for like decorative closets and racks and stuff like that. It's got these Allen set bolts and to essentially hold it secure. Comes with this little hook attachment at the very end. So same concept. It's got that hook, eye bolt there, and then just your typical carabiner hanging the actual feeder itself. So the support of it's actually drilled into the concrete wall. So it has 3 studs going through the wall there with the 2 set bolts. So it's pretty sturdy. This thing is, it's very heavy. So I think right now it's probably a good, good 10-12 pounds of weight with all of the food and the metal itself. So yeah, you need something fairly sturdy to support this thing over the pond, because definitely don't want this to fall in there. So I think that pretty much covers the Sweeney automatic koi feeder, and hopefully that helps give an overview of what I'm doing here in the pond, how much I'm feeding and what I'm feeding. So any other questions, comments, just feel free to drop them down below. Thanks guys.